Welcome to my podcast. This is Ann P. of Fiber, Floss, and Fiction. Today is May the 5th, 2020, so happy Cinco de Mayo and happy one day post May the 4th be with you. I hope everyone is doing okay. We are still kind of hunkered down here in New Mexico, and that's totally good with all of us here in the house. Just normal stuff, nothing crazy going on here. We're just kind of waiting it out, like I'm sure all of you are as well. A few things started opening up, but it's still pretty quiet. So I am really hoping to get you guys a short video today. I think it's only been about a week since I recorded, and I'm going to try to get through stuff fairly quickly and get on with my day. So let's just go ahead and we'll jump in and get started. So I'm going to talk about knitting first. The first thing I have to share with you guys is a finished project. This is the second pasture, I always want to say pastures, but Pasture and Woods hat, designed by Alicia Plummer. This is a worsted weight Fair Isle or stranded knitting pattern, and I mostly use kind of scraps for this one. You remember the other one I did was slightly more neutral colors. So this is Imperial Stock Ranch, this denim blue. The kind of terracotta color is the Favor Erin from Sincere Sheep in the colorway Golden Gate. And then the chocolate brown that has a little bit of heathering to it is the worsted weight. I always get Flywheel and Watershed mixed up. I think it's Watershed, but it's Harrisville Designs colors and yarn. So I did not finish. I finished all of this blue because I had knit a hat previously. I think that's 2 podcasts ago. I had knit a hat using half of the skein. So I used all but the last few yards of it up for this, but I still have both of the contrast colors, so I may make something else with them. But there's another hat finished. There's the color work on the top. Another kind of hopefully relatively unisex color palette to go in my gifting box. So if you're new to the channel, and I guess I should say that, welcome. Thank you for stopping by and checking me out. If you're a returning viewer, as always, thank you for spending some time with me today. I hope everyone enjoys what I have to talk about. If you are new to the channel, I am doing the hashtag 100-day project, which is to work on something of your choice for 100 days. And I am working my way through stash yarn, trying to put as many pieces into a box for charity as I can. So that's what this one will be. I then cast on for the next project that I'm working on, which I've had in my Ravelry queue forever. And as always, I will link to the actual pattern pages on Ravelry down below. So if you love the design, you can go check it out yourself. I cast on the Campside Shawl by Alicia Plummer, and this is a freebie via Pom Pom magazine. It's a DK weight shawl, so it's a little bit heavier, which means in theory it knits up a little bit more quickly. And it's basically just eyelets, interspaced in different patterns, but that's all that it is. So for the yarn, I'm using, I got 3 skeins of this in a kind of gift swap. This is an 80% merino, 20% alpaca DK weight yarn from Alta, which is AALTA yarns. Super soft and squishy in this really nice kind of brighter navy blue. It's not quite as like black as this navy blue, but it's got a little more brightness to it. And this is, I have 3 skeins. This is the first skein. And here is where I am on this project. So I have done the setup rows. I have done the first set of eyelets. Scooch down. I've done the second set of eyelets that are more closely put to, you know, closely stacked to each other. And I'm just starting, I don't think you can see, this last chart is chart 3 of 4 for the eyelets. So I've got hair of mine hanging off of it. It's coming along pretty good. You just can't see very much because it's now all balled up on my needles. But in terms of the charts, I am about 2/3 of the way through the charts. Obviously, as you're working this, you're increasing. So there's more stitches down here at the bottom. Oops, I'm about to lose my stitch marker. So slower going than up at the top in terms of the rows. You increase 1 stitch here along the edge. You increase a stitch on either side of this center spinal in the center back, and then another stitch at this far edge. So this was a great knit. My husband and I actually took a drive this past weekend and just went and looked at sites. If you follow me on Instagram, you can see some of those from our trip around northern New Mexico. And so I took this along and knit on it in the car. So that's my work on it for an hour a day kind of project. And I should be into the second ball fairly shortly. It's not much to look at here balled up on the needles, but I am working on it. So that is my current project for the 100-day. The last little bit I wanted to share with you guys is not technically knitting. It's crochet. This book has just come out. It is Modern Italian Lace Crochet by Karen Woolley, who is a good friend. And she actually used 2 of my yarns in the book. Let me flip to those real quick. The first one is Costeria, which is based on the Tuscan coastline. So she used the colorway Sea Dragon for this one, which is one of my favorites. It's kind of a teal base, and then it's got darker blue, darker green, and kind of bronze speckles on it. And then she also used it for her Piazza design. This is the colorway Hydrangea. Let's see, I think she's got another picture in here. Here it is. So kind of a different shape to this one. It's got sort of squared off corners and is super lacy. Kind of, well, it's based on the Italian town square. So they're square units that are joined together. So this book is, if you're a crocheter, this book is now available for pre-order through her website, which I will link below. And she is giving away like freebie stitch markers with a purchase. I think it's the first 100 purchases, but all that information is on her website. So if you like crochet, there's a mix of garments and shawls in this particular book. A few others that are kind of previewed there on the back. These again are the 2 that I contributed yarn for. But a really nicely done collection. This is, I believe, her 3rd self-published book. I did not shoot photographs for this one. I did for the first 2, but this one, the scheduling and stuff didn't work out. So nicely done as always. If you're familiar with her designs, you'll know that they're really well written, and she extensively tech edits and test knits everything that goes out. So if you're a crocheter, that might be of interest to you. She's also got some other information on her website, again, which I'll link below, that tells you about like some freebies and other things that are upcoming. So, all right, that's going to do us for knitting today. Let's move on to books. So I have 3 books to talk about. The first book is called The Mountain and the Sea, and the author is Kwame Dawes. I will put links to all of the Goodreads book pages below so you can find these. This is a book that was available as a free Audible listen as part of their, if you have a membership with Audible, it was one of their freebies from April. They still do have it available on Audible though, and it's fairly inexpensive. It's kind of a short story. It's a little longer than a short story. But I had picked it up because it was free. I'm all about that. So in this particular book, I've been trying to read kind of non-white European or American authors, more of those writers' stories. So that was one of the reasons that I picked this year. The story takes place on a small island off of Jamaica. The main character is an artist whose husband has recently died. She's 50. And she has one remaining child, and she has this small island that she owns. She's not like super famous or super wealthy, but she owns this little tiny island that has a little tiny house on it. That's her studio. And it's kind of her sanctuary and her place where she escapes to. And a hurricane is coming in, and so she decides she's going to go to the island because she'd rather be there and weather the hurricane there than to be on the mainland of Jamaica. So she's driving to the coastline where she takes a small boat over to the island. And in the middle of the road on this mountain path, she almost runs into a gentleman who is standing in the middle of the road, stark naked, and he has lost his memory. He doesn't know how he got there. And so with the storm coming and she's concerned about his safety, she puts a coat on him and puts him in the car, and she takes him to her island. And the story is about him beginning to remember who he is, their growing relationship, and then her regrowth as an artist, as somebody who's kind of coming back to her art in a later part of her life. The book resolves with her in a position of empowerment, which is great. I felt like this almost could have been a longer book, like more pages in it. It was a little short for me. I felt like the characters maybe could have been developed a little bit more strongly, some of the backstory, but a very enjoyable read, kind of fun to like find out about this guy sort of in layers, and why she thinks he's a certain type of person, and maybe he is and maybe he isn't. And some of it is just like her talking to herself inside her head about making good choices. So it's a fun, quick little read, and set in an area that I don't read about very often. So that was kind of fun. And their relationship is really good. I enjoyed the creation of that, even though, like I said, I felt like the book was maybe a little short, and could have actually benefited from a little bit more in-depth exploration of the characters before moving the storyline ahead. The second book that I finished this last week or so is one from Ilona Andrews, who I've talked about before. She and her husband, it's a co-author, are some of my favorite sort of fantasy, kind of urban fantasy type writers. This is the third and a half book in her Innkeeper series. So I read books 1 and 2 earlier this year, and this is a standalone kind of short book before she's moved on to a longer, fuller book about one of the other characters that she introduced in book 2. So the premise, and you can find these on Ilona Andrews' Facebook page in installments. And our library actually also has the published books, so I picked it up through there. The main character is Dina, who is an innkeeper, but it's an innkeeper for interspecies and intergalactic species travel. Earth is kind of a safe place that they can come to as they're jumping to some other reality, some other place. So she has alien creatures who come and stay with her, and she lives in sort of a Texas suburb and has to keep all of this very quiet. She and the inn share emotions. They're emotionally tied to each other. So when she has someone who comes from a different planet, she uses her magic and the magic of the inn to build a room that they will find comforting and fulfill all of the sort of security needs that she needs to make sure, keeping different aliens who are at war with each other separate, and their dietary needs and whatever atmospheric needs that they have. So this one kind of introduces Dina's relationship with her new boyfriend, significant other, Sean, who we've been introduced to in the previous 2 books, who is a werewolf, I guess I would call him. He's a shapeshifter. He can shift into wolf form, and he and she have decided to run the inn together, and he's kind of her director of security. So if you've read any other of Ilona Andrews' books, similar flavor, similar kind of funny tongue-in-cheek humor, good battle scenes, good strong women characters with the overlay of fantasy over it. This one's a pretty short read, so it makes more sense if you want to jump into the series to actually go back to the first book in this. I think the characters aren't as developed in this shorter format as you might like. It will help you understand kind of the backstory and what's going on in the book. But a super fun read. It was exactly the kind of late read that I needed, and a good little palate cleanser. So went and read that as well. And then the final book I wanted to talk to you guys about is called The Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper by Phaedra Patrick. So I had looked at this book several times, and our library just got a copy, so I picked it up from there. This is a very quiet, sweet little book. The main character, Arthur Pepper, is recently widowed, and he's pretty much he's 70. He lives in England. He's pretty much locked himself in his little retirement house, and he doesn't want to see his neighbors, and he doesn't really want to interact with anybody. He's put himself on a very strict schedule where he gets up at the same time. He waters his fern, he cleans the house, he drinks his cup of tea at 8:30, and so he's got his day very structured. And he thinks of himself as a fairly quiet, simple, retired gentleman. He decides the second morning of our story, that he is going to take his daughter's advice and clean out his wife's clothing closet. So he gets 2 trash bags, and he's sorting through things to go to the Goodwill store and thrift store, and things that are just going to be tossed. And he pulls a shoebox out of the closet, and when he pulls the shoes out of it, they're boots, he hears something jingling. So he puts his hand in, and he pulls out this charm bracelet, which he's never seen before. And he can't imagine it is his wife's. It's got all these interesting little set of 6 charms on it. And he's not sure what to do with it, because he doesn't think it's hers, but he also doesn't want to throw it away. It might be worth something. So he decides that he's going to see what he can find out about the charms. And the first one that he does any poking around about is the first one that is an elephant with a small green gem set in the top of it. And so he embarks on this journey to figure out what these 6 charms signified in his wife's life. And each one of them is a little bit of a story about her past. And it's not a bad past, but it's a past that Arthur knew nothing about. He thought she was a very quiet, retiring, shy person, just like him. But it turns out that she had a whole set of adventures as a young woman that he's never been a part of and didn't know anything about. So he kind of unfolds each little charm, has its own story, its own backstory about something that his wife did in her youth before she met him. And it's also a story about how he realizes what a great marriage he did have and how happy he is with his life, but it also gets him a little bit out of his shell, and he realizes maybe he's more of an adventurer than he thought he was. So really nice, sweet story about kind of rebuilding relationships with your friends and your family and coming to terms with things in your past and the past of the people that you loved. And maybe recognizing that some of the things you thought were truths all of these years actually aren't. So I really, really enjoyed this one. I think it's a great read for pretty much anybody. I mean, it's not a little kid's story, but there's nothing overtly violent or upsetting in it other than the fact that you know that the story starts because his wife has died. So some of the stories that he finds are ones that he then sort of has a happy memory about his wife, and some of them he has sort of a bittersweet memory about. But they're all memories, and they help him understand who his wife was and who this person he loved was. So again, I will link to all of those below. I'm also going to link to a Goodreads challenge group that I found thanks to Jessie Marie, who I have friended over in Goodreads and whose feed occasionally comes up in mine. This group over on Goodreads is a whole bunch of reading challenges. So if you need something to get you kick-started to get back into reading, where you want some prompts, they have ones with no deadline. You just work on them as you work on them. They have ones that are month-long, ones that are quarterly or seasonally themed, ones that you have to find a book with a specific type of topic. Like I read The Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper looking for a book where the title contained a spice, pepper. There's ones where you just look for the title. The first word of the title has to begin with a certain letter. So I will link to that below. If you are interested, be forewarned, it is a deep, deep rabbit hole, which I happily fell down and now have like a whole bunch of other new books that I'm looking forward to reading. So we'll link to that for you all below for those of you who are my book followers. Okay. Gonna move on now to stitching. I have 3 projects to show you guys, and let's see, the first of those is a stitching shelf. So now that Mania has officially started, what I had decided to do, and I talked about this a little bit in my last video, I'm doing 13 projects that are all on my Stitch 20 and 20 list. So things I either want to get completely done or a page finish on, plus the full coverage pieces that I've already gotten a page finish on this year. So a total of 13 projects that I'm going to stitch 1,000 stitches in each. And I decided that I would start a few days before the actual kickoff, May 1st. So I started last Tuesday, which was the 28th of April, in the hopes I can finish all of this stitching by the 28th of May and then have a new start. So I'm doing my version of Stitchsania, where I'm working all on works in progress. If I meet my 13,000 stitch goal, I'll have a new start here at the end of the month. So that said, here is a stitching shelf. I am working on this page, which has its 1,000 stitches added. This is done. So this is, there's another 2 books sitting here. So I'm working on that, had been working on that, but this is done for the month of May. Just chugging away on that, and it will not, I don't think it will be out again for a couple of months, but if I get all my other Stitch 20 and 20 things finished, that's going to go in the slot to try to finish that top row. I have that page and I believe it's 2.5 left. Gonna give it a try. We'll see. Okay, the next piece that I worked on, nope, was not that one. It was my June word play, which I had been kind of putzing along on, and part of the reason I decided to start Stitch Mania early was I just was not feeling very focused at getting anything done, and I figured, why wait? Just do it. So again, the goal was 1,000 stitches on this. I am stitching my version on a 28 count Gervais Designs fabric called Winter Frost. This is a 28 count Brittany, and I am converting all of this to mostly color and cotton threads. I think everything actually in here currently is color and cotton. So here is where this is. I already had been working on this a little bit, so I think I have about 700 to 800 stitches left to finish this, but unfortunately it has met its 1,000 stitch mark for Stitch Mania, so it's going to be going away until then. I have to finish the house. There's a few little snowflakey kind of things that go in here. I have to finish these 2 words. There's, oh well, and the lady's body and head, obviously. And there's a cascade of flowers up here at the top. So really, really love this one. I pulled the palette together a little bit. There's less colors in mine that are actually called for. But I kind of just wanted it subtle blues and then the red to really pop in the places that have the red. So I'm hoping then that I will have a reason to just get that done in June and maybe even get it fully finished, and then I can enjoy it in the month of June. That would be fantastic. And then I worked on the May wordplay. So I just finished up my 1,000 stitches on this yesterday. These are both by Brenda Gervais, if I didn't say that. And I'm also using a mix of color and cotton threads with some gentle arts. Stitching this one on 36 count linen. It's a picture of this plus that I can never remember the name of. And there is where it is. So not quite as far along on this one, but it is at the 1,000 stitch mark. I have probably another 1,000 or 1,200 stitches to put into this. Won't get it done for the month of May, but I will finish it this year and have it for 2021 to display. So love that little black lab right there. Okay, so that is that one completed. So that is the first 3 of 13. Currently, I am working on Heaven and Earth Designs Once Upon a Fairy Tale, which I did not bring up because it's still on my frame downstairs. I have 70 stitches left to finish my 1,000 on those, which I'm going to do today. And then that'll be number 4. So up next, I think Desert Mandala is going to go on the frame. And what I've been doing is I've been stitching for about an hour outside in the afternoons because we've had gorgeous weather here. So I'll take another small one of the word plays or something like that to start putting stitches in for that small project. And then Desert Mandala will go on my frame. That's kind of my in the evening stitching. So we'll work on 1,000 stitches on those next 2 projects as soon as Fairy Tale is finished up tonight. So it'll get me started. Last but not least, I just wanted to show you this great pattern that my friend Kim over at Spartan Stitcher, excuse me, sent me. This is from the World of Cross Stitching. I don't know the issue, but it's, I think, the most recent one. If I can get this open. Yeah. So she knows how much I love those little red foxes. So she sent me this really pretty design. This is the fox cushion. This is the fox itself is basically full coverage, and then it's got black work and some other little mini specialty stitches, lazy daisies and French knots, and then it actually has some sequins applied to it, although I think I would probably use beads if I did it here in the flower centers of a few of the flowers. But isn't that super cute? Love it. So thank you, Kim, for thinking of me and fostering my fox edition. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to that, but it is going in my stitch pattern stash, so I will have it for when I start it. I had a few things that I had ordered from 123 Stitch, but they are for a new start for June, so I will show you those. It was a few, I'm looking at it over there. It was a thing of pearl cotton, thing of petite treasure braid, and a couple of tins of beads for a Teresa Wentzler pattern that I'm going to be starting with Dina over at Half Stitch Cross Stitch. Hi Dina, if you're watching. That's for June. So that will not be the other new start. I have not pulled fabric or anything for my potential end of May new start. So we'll see when we get there. What I am hoping is with the progress that I'm able to make on all of those word plays, I'm hoping that I will get enough steam ahead on those that I can really start just getting those finished up, kind of banged out. I have the 4 left, May, June, November, December, and then that's it. I've got all the rest of them done for the entire year. So looking forward to having those hopefully pretty close to being done in the next couple of months and just get them off my plate. So I think that's it for me today. I managed to keep it at just about half an hour, so that's not too bad. I will be back probably in another 10 days or so, maybe the end of next week. Just I'm trying to keep these slightly shorter and do them slightly more frequently when I have a day that I can fit them in, and today was that day. So I hope wherever you are in the world that you're doing well, you and your family are staying safe, and hopefully things are kind of starting to tick back to normal. And so if you've been kind of climbing the walls, I hope that you'll be able to get out and about soon in a safe way. So keep wearing your masks, wash your hands, stay away from sick people, all that good stuff. So until then, my friends, be well, and I'll talk to you soon.